guys, B-Sticks here. Go follow me on Instagram. And we're back today looking at another sample, which is from my upcoming pack. If you want to cop any of my existing packs, the link is going to be down below in the description. I've got some free mini kits available, so go cop them and let's get into it. So I started with this patch from Sky Keys. I'm loving this plugin right now. It's got some really good sounds, very good textures, and it's kind of like a sampler that has organic sounds that you can play as synths. So let's play this patch, and I'm going to put the chords up on screen as I go through. So this is the A section, which is the first 8 bars of the sample. I'm just literally using minor sevenths and major sevenths here, so nothing too complicated, but just doubled up some of the notes, and the chords are really nice the way that I voiced them, and that's the important thing, just making sure that they sound good and they go into each other nicely. So as you can see, it's really just 4 chords, because I'm repeating the C sharp minor chord at the last 2 bars of the sample. First of all, I added a phaser, which made it sound like this. Doing quite a bit of heavy lifting on that, so again 50% mix, just the Logic stock phaser. Then added reels, and I really turned up the wow and flutter, and the drops and the crosstalk on this. Turned the hiss down a little bit because it was really hissy, and that just added some vintage flavour to the sound. I filtered quite a lot of the sound out with this EQ, and then I just used the S1 imager to widen the sound a little bit on this occasion, because I really wanted it to take up a bit more space than it was. So if we just listen with all the processing engaged. So it sounds pretty cool. Nice bed for us to get started. And this sample is a great example of the fact that with just a couple of sounds that I limited myself to, you can create something that sounds really massive. So it's all about sound selection. It's all about then sound design, how you're going to process them. And I think this is a good lesson for you guys to look and see that literally, like, there's only about 6 sounds, 7 sounds in the whole sample, and you can make something that sounds really good. So I added the bass in after, and I went for this patch. You've seen me use it before. It's called the Growler Moog bass, or Growler Moog bass, which is a really good sound. It's got that kind of Drakey bass sound that we've heard a million times. I know that Take a Day Trip and some other big producers use this patch right here. So it sounded like this. I literally just followed the root notes for the first A section of the sample. So together, the pad and the pad and the bass sounded like this. So already, we got some emotion there. It's sounding really good. I wanted to add a vocal in because, again, I thought that a vocal would give us that kind of vintage R&B, 90s R&B feel to it. So again, I went to Arcade. You've seen me use this a couple of times. The patch is called Better Off, and I didn't even pitch it up or down on this one. But what I did was, if I take all the processing off, I'll just play you the vocals on their own. So I also had a bus send on this vocal, so I'm going to turn all the processing off and we'll just play the vocal on its own. No, 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 I don't want your love. I don't want your love. Ooh. Sounds pretty cool, but very dry. So we did quite a lot to it. So initially I just put on some Valhalla Vintage Verb. Then I added this vocal bender plugin. Now, a lot of people use Little Altar Boy, and I use it sometimes, but I find that it does create some weird artifacts, and it was just not sounding very good on this occasion. So I tend to like to use this Waves vocal bender with the formant shift, and literally that sounded like this. So it sounded pretty interesting. Then I filtered some of that mud from the sound and some top end off that as well. I wanted to give that kind of lo-fi flavour. Shaper box, where on this occasion I added a filter, which basically brings the sound in and out, but I kept the mix quite low, just on literally this basic preset here. I also added a pan, so we're moving from side to side, and then I added an L2 just to level that off. Give it and give it a bit of distortion. So with everything else in now, these three sounds, you got sounding really good. So not actually that much more things to add now. I added some drums, and this is an interesting plugin from Beat Surfing, this lunch table. I just literally dragged out this preset here. So I had this interesting groove. I'm just going to mute the processing on it, and I like this plugin from Beat Surfing, lunch table. It just literally is like knocking pens and different bits and bobs on the table, so without any processing. Sound like that. I wanted to filter a lot of the sound away, because again, a producer's going to add drums to this, so just wanted it quite minimal, quite in the background. So to push it further back in the mix, again, I use this vintage verb on the concert hall preset, setting, sorry, and then it's LFO tool, which I'm just got a sidechain on. Sometimes I use this, sometimes I use Shaperbox. It all depends on what kind of vibe I want to go for, and that gave us this kind of sound. And then there's only literally this Louis texture that I added as well. Background ear candy sort of sound. I make these a lot myself using my pedal, my Therme pedal, but on this occasion Louis' one worked well, and I just put a sample delay on this sound to make it spread using the Huss effect from left to right in your headphones. It's something you're really going to pick up on headphones and not so much without them on. And then just the simple vinyl crackle for texture. So altogether the A section sounded like this. So it sounded really cool. So I moved into the B section. So if we look at the different sounds that I brought in for this, the vocal I kept the same, but I doubled it and I actually pitched it up an octave to give us like a little more texture and a little more variation. So together, both octaves sound like this. The drums out for this. Put another interesting pad in, which is again from Sky Keys, and this sounds really cool. Love this sound, check it out. So it's a really interesting pad sound there. And literally, I didn't need to do too much to it. I tried OTT, but didn't like how that sounded, so that's muted. Reels, where I'm making it vintage again. Some filtering I'm doing there. Decimal, which I know that 40 uses a lot to get that kind of underwater sound with Drake. And I used it here on this occasion. And then I widened the sound again like I did before to give this. Sounds really cool. Then I doubled the chords. I literally copied the MIDI onto one of my favorite pianos, which is the Lab soft piano. I think it just sounds great all the time. Really, really good sound, and it's free as well. So go cop that if you haven't got it. I strummed out some of the chords, but I also added a top line melody. Very simple, one note top line melody. That sounded like this. It's my usual preset on here. If you haven't seen my videos before, literally some RC20, Valhalla Vintage Verb, and this texture plugin, which is a secret weapon. I love this. Go copy if you haven't got it. So the piano sounded like this with all the processing. You get the idea. Very simple melody. Again, I kept this sample really simple, really straightforward. The thing with samples that work for Drake is that they tend to be quite simple, quite ambient, leave a lot of space for Drake or whoever the artist is to do their thing over the top. So in this occasion, again, I just left it quite empty. So this section contrasts nicely. I brought the bass out for it as well. Same texture in there. So again, you don't need to hear it because we heard it in the beginning. And then the C section, I've pretty much got the same sounds I did in the beginning, but I added this lead, which sounds like this without processing, just so. Just called the On One, again from Sky Keys, as you can see, really loving this right now. And the processing that I put on it, some phaser, some reels. In fact, I think I muted the phaser because it was just making it too quiet. So reels. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Follow me on Instagram and I'll catch you in the next one.